Hi, I'm going to call the meeting to order and a roll call. Have a roll call, please.
This is Darren Clark.
Debbie Ilhada.
Rafael Menace.
Nicholas Teller.
Emily Ricketts.
Laurel Martin. Okay. Could I ask for approval of the minutes for January 27th of this year, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I
Could I have a second, please?
I second.
Okay.
All
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Point of order. I don't believe we've actually been able to view the minutes. They don't seem to be part of the agenda packet.
They said in the email that I sent to you all?
Yeah, I have mine.
Yes.
All right, I'll look through that again.
Okay. So we've approved the meeting, the minutes from January 27th. At this point, could we ask for citizens to be heard? They may speak under any item not listed on the agenda. The time limit is 5 minutes. So do we have any citizens to be heard?
Yes, we do have one, Laurel.
Okay.
From George Persley. He's a county library commissioner for Pinole. As the schools are about to reopen, I would strongly recommend that the commission look at ways of involving the students in projects which will connect them to city-sponsored activities and reaching out to the principals at our schools to work with them and how best to serve both the schools and city in the difficult and very important job of successfully reopening.
Okay.
That's the end of his comment.
Okay, and I'll reply to that, as others can, that we actually, in non-COVID times, we do that. We do reach out to the local schools. We go through the school district and provide flyers and information, and we encourage students to come to things like coastal cleanup, community service day, and other activities, Easter egg hunt, that kind of thing. We do encourage them to come with us. So we will continue to do that as soon as we're back under reasonably normal circumstances. Any other comments on that?
I'll make a comment. We have a really good success rate from the high school, the Interact Club and or leadership, especially to coastal cleanup and community service day.
Does anyone else have a comment on that?
I think what George may have been suggesting was looking for ways to link students in beyond those events, because we have, I agree, got good help from the Interact Club and the Leadership Club with the larger events that we've held in the past. But aside from that, I'm not sure how open our lines of communications with the school communities are, particularly below the high school level. I know that.
Well, we do reach out to them, and we will continue to do that. We can make a particular effort to go through the school district and reach that will get permission and go provide flyers and go talk to the principal. I know we used to share schools and then we'd go talk to the principal ourselves. So we can continue to do that. George, if you're watching this.
I have one more comment. In years past, not that long ago, there would be some elementary schools that would get involved and they would get a project going at their own school. I remember in particular one elementary school, and the name escapes me, but we have had some success and we are always trying.
Yes, I know, Debbie, you're referring to Community Service Day. You've encouraged principals at elementary schools, if you don't want to participate in the city projects, how about focusing on a project at your school and invite parents and friends to participate. And that has happened because we have visited them. Yeah. Are there any other comments on this topic? Well, thank you, George, for commenting to us and asking the question. And we will make a concerted effort to do that. Next item on the agenda is old business, 2021 events. This is a tough one because this has been a year of, you mean events that we might do later this year?
Yes, I wanted to follow up. I know at the last meeting, the commissioners had decided that they did not want to host any events until the fall. So I just wanted to check if anything has changed since then, or is the agreement still that events would not continue until later this year?
I think we can partner with certainly for if we have a cleanup day, we can certainly partner for that. And I think we're open, Maria. I think we're open to kind of helping do anything.
Would the commission consider hosting a dumpster day event in spring instead of fall this year?
I think so.
I would think that we would want to be at least in the orange tier before we host an event, just to lower the risk of community spread, even for a relatively low interaction event like Dumpster Day.
Yes, I agree.
Hopefully in April we'll be there.
Well, hopefully, but until the CDC county says it, you don't want to jump the gun either.
No, you're right, Nick. Yeah. So
may I ask a question? Are we thinking, or we have completely decided not to do a community service day in early June?
I think it's really pushing it to, I think it's, the time frame is difficult. We would have to do it later, I think, Debbie. It would have to be a little like maybe September or something, August or something.
Probably.
I think it would be safer to push that out until fall.
Yeah.
Maybe we wait till next year and, in the fall do the dumpster day and the coastal cleanup.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, my only comment is, that seems early. Let's have an abundance of caution and safety and
yes,
out into the fall, or we just do a 2022, spring community service day.
I have a question. So has the city of Pinole, right now at the current time in the tier we're in, do they have any rules or regulation as far as how many people can gather together outside on a private property? Does anyone know the answer to that?
So Debbie, the city has to follow the guidelines from the county. So I think the county currently has an outdoor gatherings, I believe, are for 3 households, and I think it's under 25 people, but they have their restrictions. So I would recommend that you guys visit the county website because they detail everything that is allowed and what their guidelines are for that, and the city has to follow those as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, it seems that the consensus is that we would wait to do a community service day, but we could, if the tier, and I'm hearing this from most of you, if the tier changes to orange, and with cooperation with city, then city maintenance, then we could consider trying to plan to do a dumpster day in the fall.
Yeah.
How does everyone feel about that?
I feel good.
Okay.
I agree.
Oh yeah, we can do our reactions.
So we'll have to wait until next month to see if the tier changes, and then we'll have to maybe work with Tamara and see, who can help us with the. We'll need some help with it, obviously, and Republic would have to provide dumpsters for us again. But I think what you're hearing, Maria, is that we are ready to go in fall if we can.
Okay, so fall for a community service day event, and then a dumpster day event once the county is in the orange tier, and depending on the availability of Republic services.
I'm not sure that. I think I was hearing that community service day would probably have to be next year.
Yes.
Okay, so next year. Okay, so a community service day event for 2022, and then a possible dumpster day event when the county is in the orange tier?
Yes.
And coastal cleanup.
And coastal cleanup, we can work with the group with that again.
Okay, so I will check in. Well, we'll have to wait for the county, of course, to get into the orange tier, but I can also check in with Republic and see what their availability is for spring. And then that way we can have that information, and then I'll share it with you.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any comments on events? I know that we want to get started, but we do need to be cautious and follow the guidelines.
I just want to ask, just to make sure that I understand. Maria just said, were we willing to do dumpster day in the spring? And
I think fall.
Yeah, I thought we said fall.
Fall. Okay, so it's fall. Okay, that's what I wanted to double check, because I know the county has predicted that we're going into the orange tier. So since you guys said orange tier, I wanted to double check on that. So it is just dumpster day as well would be in the fall. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so nothing this spring then?
No. That's the vote anyway. Darren.
Unfortunately, it's a little soon to plan for spring.
Hello, Laura. This is Hector.
Hi, Hector.
Hi, Hector.
Hi. Can I mention something? And Maria probably mentioned it already. I'm sorry, I'm a little late. I had another meeting. There's been discussions internally that we would like to have a dumpster day event during the summer. If community services feels that they cannot participate, that's fine. Maybe we can get volunteers to do that. So did I miss the discussion that included maybe a consideration of a summer event as well as maybe a fall event?
Hector, I think we would, so long as we're following county guidelines, I think that we would be quite willing as a group to participate in summer for a dumpster day.
As long as the tiers have changed. We were putting it out till fall, thinking that by then the tiers will have definitely changed.
But maybe late summer.
Just discussed.
Maybe by August or something.
Maybe.
So Hector, I think we have to wait to answer that properly until next month and see if we move down to the orange tier.
Or see whether the trend lines look like we're going to continue to be in the orange tier or keep dropping by the time we get to summer, because sometimes we've dropped down lower and then we just went right back up again.
So I think in response to your question, Hector, is we would, as a group, be prepared to work with you, work with that particular project, a dumpster day. But I think it's going to have to be late summer, perhaps August.
Okay, that's fine. As long as, as long as we have some direction. And I think I heard earlier that if we move into the orange tier, then you guys feel a little bit more comfortable with possibly having an event at that point.
I believe everyone feels that way, Hector. Does anyone feel differently? So I think we could plan for that then. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that's fine. But for those of us who are not vaccinated yet, by then,
by then you will be vaccinated,
yeah. If so, right. then happy to help volunteer. But if not.
Sure.
And I'm going to segue real quick. On a side note, if you're not already aware, Contra Costa County, if you're 50 to 64, they're allowing you to get vaccinated at no cost. You don't have to have any health issues. So all you have to do is make an appointment with them and get vaccinated. So that's another option there for everyone who's 50 and over.
Thank you, Hector. Did you have anything else you wanted to discuss?
No, I think that's it for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's all we can discuss at the moment for 2021, since it's been such a tough year. Does anyone else have any idea or suggestions or anything for other events that we might try and do if things are safer? Or will we try and just stay with those two events?
I'm thinking that we should probably stay with the two because we just don't know.
Yes.
We'll come out like gangbusters next year, right?
Yes, exactly. That's how I was feeling. But we will come out next year. We're going to be on it.
Right. We'll do some planning at towards the end of the year for what we want to do. That'd be great. So everyone put your thinking caps on if there are any extra projects that we might participate in for next year.
All right.
All right, I'm going to move to new business. The first one is park rules. Maria, did you have anything on this?
You all received the email that I sent over with the park rules from Tamara?
Yep.
Yes.
Do you guys have any comments? Have you been able to review the park rules?
Oh, I did have a question. Oh, I had a question on 28. Number 28, towards, this is when you get into the draft of Pinole Park rules. And what was my question? Any picnic or meeting group? No, I circled the wrong one. I'll chime in a moment.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So Tamara, who's presenting the item, thought that the meeting started at 6, but I just called her, so she's going to log on right now.
Oh,
and she'll
good.
be able to go over the item.
Okay, thank you. So,
I found my question.
okay.
It's
Do you want to wait until Tamara's here?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's a better idea.
Until Tamara's with us, we could just start the reviewing of the bylaws. And can I just ask, I'm going to put my 2 cents in. What I read, and most of those things are relevant, but I am not sure that, and I don't know if Dave is still with us, that we have ever been involved in overseeing Pinole TV. I think that's kind of irrelevant, but the other duties and responsibilities in that, we do follow through. Does anyone have any comments on the bylaws?
I have a few comments.
Okay.
First off, just wanted to go ahead and have us review the bylaws so we were all on the same page of them. So if people don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and read through Article 2 in particular, since that's the meat of the bylaws, as it were.
Well, we all have this.
Right, but the public may not necessarily have it. I know the agenda packet just included the proposed park rules revision and not the other items like the meeting minutes or the Community Services Commission bylaws. So,
we did get that sent to us.
Yes, as commissioners, but the public who are also watching this meeting don't necessarily have that information.
Okay.
And it's not a very long article.
All right. General duties and responsibilities. Be a principal advisor to the City Council, Recreation Director, City Manager, and other boards, commissions, and city departments in all matters pertaining to public recreation, parks, arts and cultural activities, historical activities, public access television activities, senior and youth activities, and community services. 2, review and recommend policies and procedures governing recreation, park, and community services for approval by the City Council. 3, support and nurture relationships with schools, community, and civic organizations. 4, advocate for recreation and community services and liaison for improving the quality of life and recreational opportunities for the community of Pinole. 5, collaborate with individuals, civic clubs, nonprofit organizations, and citizen groups to provide funds, property, and/or volunteerism for the development and operation of parks and recreation facilities. 6, to serve as a forum in introducing innovative and new ideas, concepts, programs, policies, and procedures. Any comments from any of the board?
I have a few comments, but if anybody else wants to make their comments first, because I might be speaking for a little while on this.
Keep in mind, Raphael, that some of these, the emphasis on some of these was prior to your being on the commission too, such as, working more with principals and things. So go ahead, please.
Sure. So first and foremost, I think that now is a good time to consider the bylaws, whether they're still, fit for purpose, whether we're doing all the things within the bylaws or whether we think they should be amended or changed. I think that more broadly speaking, it would be worthwhile for us to have a general idea of the various policies and procedures that, fall under our purview so we can review them and have an idea of, what could potentially be improved or changed or innovated on, not just the park rules, but all the policies in general, and also having all those items agendized as meeting items if they're attached to the meeting packets would also make them more readily available to the general public. With regards to relationships with schools, community, and civic organizations. As noted earlier in the meeting, we do have relationships with our schools and with some community and civic organizations, but I do think that it's worth remembering that is one of our primary goals, and it's always something we can work on. And improving the quality of life and recreational opportunities for the community of Pinole. That seems somewhat like a carryover, I think, from the prior nature of the commission, because I believe this commission was previously the Parks and Recreation Commission. We probably could discuss ways to improve quality of life and recreational opportunities. But I don't think that we have been doing that previously, so that would need somewhat of a change in focus on our part. And again, funds property and or volunteerism for the development and operation of parks and recreation facilities, again, is somewhat tangential to more providing volunteerism for the benefit of the city as a whole, which I think is what we've been doing with Dumpster Day and Coastal Cleanup and Community Service Day. And of course, serving as a forum for introducing innovative and new ideas, concepts, programs, policies, and procedures is by its nature broad and doesn't really need to be particularly tied down. And principal advisor, I guess, sort of really ties back into point number 2, I think, the policies and procedures governing certain things, because in order to be an effective principal advisor, we need to know, what's currently in place. Is it working? Is it not working? That sort of thing.
Does anyone want to comment on what Raphael has discussed? Maria, do you have anything to say about this? Or?
No, I think I mentioned that as we are, Raphael has expressed some interest in exploring what else could be done, and that's why we're presenting it to the group to see. As we right now we're getting the first experience of the park rules. I think in my time with the city, we haven't reviewed too many policies or the procedures, but I think that is changing as now we're reviewing the park rules. I'm not sure if there's anything else that the commission has been involved with before, Laurel, in the time that you've been here, or if Hector's aware of the commission being involved of any other policies. But as of right now, I know the park rules is what we are focusing on right now.
Right. One involvement we had some time ago when we had the bond measure, the funding, we were involved in recommending what things might be done at specific parks in Pinole, from building the tennis courts to the kind of reviewing. I know Debbie was here then, and we would go to the parks, with city representatives, and we would look at what needed to be updated and everything. So that was a good role at that time.
This is Darren. I think, excuse me, like we're saying, I think, it could be time for a refresh. Maybe they're a little dusty, some of our bylaws. So, we could relook at them. Like you're saying, Laurel, things have changed, times have changed, as budgets have changed. And maybe our focus has changed too, to Raphael's point. So it's a good idea to review our charter and make sure it's still valid and up to date. I don't know, Raphael, if you propose that we go through the charter for amendments or changes, something like that. But I'm open to reviewing that and deciding what would be maybe the most appropriate and best wording.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'd be doing changes at this meeting in particular necessarily, since I'm not sure what the whole Brown Act rules are around notice and that sort of thing. But I figured we could at least get started on that process by having a look at the bylaws, going over them and considering them.
That's good. Yes, I think we could. I think there are some things in here that we don't do anymore. I don't, like I mentioned before, I don't recall ever overseeing, being involved with Pinole Television. Actually, for that matter, historical activities. So we partner with other groups. Does anyone else have any idea? So should we table this and discuss it line by line?
It seems like this is a meeting unto itself. So
yes, I think so.
I think you nailed it, Laurel.
Maybe we should have the dog park in there, Em. Does anyone else feel that we do the other commissioners feel that we need a little time to go through this and it needs to be line by line?
Yes.
Okay. Maria, do you feel that's the right thing to do?
We can add it for the next meeting. We can add it as an old business item, and then you guys can discuss it line by line and see if there's any changes that you're recommending or what edits have to be made.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So it seems like we will table that then. We've started the conversation, and we can all look at this again and prior to our next meeting and really think, what changes do we want to make? Do we want to shorten things? Do we want to change things? Some of it depends on budgets and, of course, non-COVID and everything. But any more comments from anyone on this, on the bylaws? Thank you, Raphael, for bringing this up. In that case, I think that we will continue with this table and continue with it at our next meeting. And I ask all the commissioners to please go through and make notes how we might edit this or change it.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Laurel.
Thank you, Laurel.
You're welcome. So with that, Tamara, you're on. Okay. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. And I so apologize for being late and not having my mic muted. I'm used to my meeting starting later, so I failed to recall it was an earlier start. Again, my apologies. Can I share screen?
You'll have to get Maria to do that, I think.
I think it's Dave.
Dave.
Has it been enabled for you, Tamara?
Now it is, yes. Thank you. Trying to remember where my screen is that I want to share. All right. Can you all see the agenda item?
Yes.
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 Awesome. So I'm here today to introduce a change to the park rules. In your role as assigned by your bylaws and as codified, actually, I was getting ready to take park rules off to the council for review and adoption. And as your role as Community Service Commission, you are to take a look at them and give input to the council on what you think of these rules. So we've put them forward for you for that consideration. In the staff item, I do pluck out the code that speaks to city parks and playgrounds and the rules. So we do have some rules that are in our code as ordinance, and we're not proposing to change those at all. That's 12.08.010 through whatever the last number is. I think it's the penalty clause. Yeah, that one, the penalty clause. So I'm just showing you what the existing Pinole Municipal Code shows. In the code, it directs City Council to adopt the rules by a resolution. So we are looking at updating the rules that have been adopted by resolution. And I brought forward, and I want to highlight this while we're in the code. So if anybody has any questions, this is the good time to ask for them. Penalties and fines are issued if you fail to follow the rules for misdemeanors and infractions. And by definition within the code, a misdemeanor is failing to follow one of the rules posted in the ordinance. And an infraction is failing to follow one of the rules that is posted in the resolution. So we've almost like have a two-tier rule system. One where we have a few rules in the ordinance that are really important to us. So we call those a misdemeanor if you fail to follow them. And then another set of rules that are adopted by resolution, and if you fail to follow them, you could be subject to an infraction. A misdemeanor is a fine of $1,000. An infraction is different. I forget what it is, $100 for the first one, $200 for the second one, and $500 for every infraction of the same rule after that. This second category is the same methodology for fines that we use in our code enforcement activities. So it's very consistent and parallel. So we're going to talk about rules that if you fail to follow, you could be cited as an infraction. So with all that said, if there's any questions on the code or the penalties, I would like to take them now, or we can jump right into the proposed rules.
Let's jump.
Jump, jump, jump.
Yes, let's go.
Double Dutch, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one's more of a repeat of one of the rules that's inside the ordinance itself, but it's coming out of the fact that we do use this sheet of rules to post in the parks. So all city parks except Fernandez Park are closed from 1 half hour after sunset to 1/2 hour before sunrise the following day. This rule is the existing rule. It's not changed. Rule number 2, Fernandez Park is closed from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. This is an existing rule and it's not being changed. And this rule was adopted in a separate resolution arising out of some activities that were happening in Fernandez Park. So Fernandez Park does have a different set of hours that are allowed than our other parks. Number 3, it is unlawful for any person to be in any park when the park is closed. Existing rule. 2, smoking or vaping of any substance is prohibited in all city parks and within 50 feet of all park entrances. Tobacco use of any kind is prohibited within all parks. This rule is similar to the existing rule. The terminology for vaping is added, and then there's a distinction between smoking and vaping anything and tobacco, which is different and could include chewing tobacco, for example. So, and this is actually the reason why we're here. We were asked to include vaping in the park rules. So that's why we went to review the rules. So right off the bat, we moved this one to the top of the list. So we're basically saying that smoking or vaping of any substance, I don't even know what they put in those vape pens, it's kind of frightening, is prohibited within the parks. And in addition to that, tobacco use of any kind. So if you're smoking tobacco, if you're vaping tobacco, if you're chewing tobacco, that's prohibited in all parks. 5, motor vehicles are prohibited within park grounds except on access roadways which are open to the public. The only access road we have that's open to the public are roads within our parking lots and Adobe Road that leads up to the dog park. So these are the only roads that vehicle access is allowed on, which are open to the public. So the road that leads down to the back of the senior center, or the road that leads down to the back of the gazebo or performance stand, those are not roads that are open to the public. So motor vehicles are prohibited on those roads. In addition, if you so happen to want to drag the ball field with a pickup truck, that's not allowed. We don't allow pickup trucks on our ball fields. They're just not set up for that. It's bad for the grass. It's bad for the clay. With that being known, though, we do occasionally have special events in Fernandez Park, for example, and we use those access roads that are closed. So this rule does note that by special permit, you may be granted access to roads. And of course, we want to go on record as saying, hey, if you see the cops in the park, they obviously are there for a reason. And they do go in there, and they not only use the ballarded off roadways, they'll drive their cars on the trails, which we like them to do because we like to be safe. Yeah. Parking is allowed in designated areas only. Again, those pretty much is limited to the parking lots. Bicycle use in parks must follow the vehicle code. So you're required to wear a helmet, you're required to yield the right of way, you're supposed to go the right direction. So that's not different than anything that we would expect. So number 8 is an alteration of a rule, and this is a recognition of the fact that we're trying to embrace multimodal transportation, and so we do a little add-on. Essentially, number 8 is alcoholic beverages are prohibited in parks. So consumption of alcoholic beverages is prohibited primarily. Just to make it clear so that we don't have issues, we're going as far as to saying open or closed alcoholic beverages are not allowed in any park. So we don't want somebody walking through the park with a can of beer that's still closed and not kind of possibly be in trouble, because they probably have an intent to open the can of beer. But persons using linear parks as means of transportation, I'm going to change this right now while it's open, as Hector pointed out, from shopping destinations may transport closed containers. We would like people to be able to use, say, the park trail to get to Sprouts, buy a 6-pack of beer along with their asparagus and grilled chicken, go home, grill their chicken, grill their asparagus, pop open their beer, and live happily ever after. So that's rule number 8. So since we're at the page break, I would like to pause there and ask if there are any questions, concerns, or comments about these 8 rules.
I have a few questions. So to start with, rule number 3, the one that says it's unlawful for any person to be in any city park when the park is closed. I know that the ordinance level document says it's unlawful for any person except for city maintenance staff. And so it seems like there's a bit of a contradiction between the infraction wording and the misdemeanor wording, as it were. Is there a way to say unlawful for any person who's not on city business to be in any city park when the park is closed?
I'm open to edits for the parks. I do think there's a later rule that speaks to that, so maybe it's a combination. And I understand that there's a question about repeating rules in the resolution that may be determined to be an infraction and leaving rules in the ordinance that may be determined to be a misdemeanor. But I believe having them in both places allows the enforcers of the rules to be respondent to the conditions of the situation. You know, nobody wants a misdemeanor for not knowing something about a park rule. So by doubling them up, we actually make it easier for our PD to talk to somebody as an infraction for something that really could be a misdemeanor, but they don't know. But it also allows them to use the misdemeanor law on somebody that they've interacted with and knows better, or they knows better, or behavior is much heightened threat to the peaceful life we want in Pinole. So while I understand the concern, I think the dual purpose is desirable, but I'm open to, making advice based on the commission's collective opinion.
And then my second comment was with regards to point number 8, the alcoholic beverages item. It seems as though a fair amount of the explanatory part of that rule is necessary, because you're saying alcoholic beverages, open or closed, are not allowed at any city park at any time. I'm just not sure what the problem would be with saying you can't have open alcoholic beverages in any city park at any time, but allow for closed beverages, and that would allow for transport through the park or storage. But as long as they're not open, they're not going to be creating public order risks.
I can understand the perspective you're sharing. Yes. I mean, there are possibly people who show up for a picnic and they put a 6-pack of beer in their cooler, and then they come to the park and read the rules, and it's like, oh, darn, we can't drink our beer. But if it was left in the cooler and not ever opened, there's no rule violated. So even though I'm trying to say transporting alcohol through the parks as a means of transportation is allowable, I would like to say coming to the park with beer is not allowable. But I understand your perspective. I mean, what behavior are you really trying to control? We are really trying to control open containers.
I think by saying open or closed, it makes it very definite.
Yeah.
Would there be any exception if there was anything, as has been in the past, with like a wine and cheese tasting fundraiser or something, or is it just not going to happen?
So later in the listed rules, there are events that are permittable by special permit or by reservation, and each and every one of those can be handled independently. And any event that has more than 30 people requires a permit. So if the city of Pinole desires to permit a wine and cheese, all the details are worked out, the liquor licenses are acquired, the safety, the insurance, the time of day. There's no reason the city wouldn't be able to allow an event by permit to have alcohol in it. The city I was at prior, the park land was gifted to the city by a person who forbid the use of alcohol in the parks in perpetuity. when it was given to the city. So I would have to check where the origin of our land came from to make sure that we didn't have such underlying prohibitions. I know we acquired like Pinole Valley Park through a grant, and sometimes those grants have conditions. And those are the types of things on a by permit basis would be researched and reviewed before a permit was issued.
Oh, that makes it clear. That's good.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
So we're okay with moving forward on 8 as it is written as a committee? Actually, why don't we just wait until the end? Number 9, this is a double up on safety. Alcoholic containers are often glass, but now there's lots of teas and all those kinds of things. And this is just a rule that I know from being a public works administrator and a park maintenance person. We just don't want glass in the park. Please don't bring your glass to the park. So I added this rule, and it may be considered aggressive, but no glass containers allowed in the city park. Nobody wants to have a broken bottle in the grass and then have their kid run through the grass and cut their feet.
I like it.
Thank you. I like it too. Dogs using the park must be
leashed. Whoops, leased. Leashed.
I spell like an engineer. What can I say? Leashed at all times, except within designated areas. People must immediately remove any animal waste deposited by animals under their care for proper disposal. No animals are allowed within play areas at any time. Feeding of wild animals within the park is prohibited. Fishing in within any
the ducks.
Ducks, yeah.
Feeding the ducks in the park is prohibited. Not only is it prohibited, it's actually not a good thing. It's like feeding Twinkies to innocent toddlers.
Well, I think that's important to make clear. Some people, let's go to the pond and feed the ducks. I just make that clear. That's not a rule. That's against the rules.
Is there a requested change? Feeding of ducks?
Well, I mean, just not even a rule. Just put a sign because so many people do it. It's just a sign might be in the best interest to make sure people know it's not allowed.
So in addition to the rule in the resolution, we want it signed at the obvious locations that we have historically seen people feed ducks.
Particularly ducks, I think, yeah. By the bridge.
I think it's a good thing, as well as an information and education sheet on the healthy diet for ducks, which is whatever they can find in nature.
And that actually led to a point of inquiry that I had, which is there anything people can feed ducks that would be healthy for them? Or is it just the act of feeding ducks and all is a bad idea flat out? Because I know a lot of the problem is just feeding ducks bread, like people typically do, is definitely not a good idea.
As a public work professional, I would love to see this no feeding of ducks, period. Even if you're going to feed them duck kibble that you can buy at the pet store, they're going to be attracted to the kibble and then they're going to poop there. And then we have an aggregated amount of poop as a public works professional that I will need to come clean up. So, my hope is, twofold, that we have a much cleaner and tidier park. And if you feed the ducks something like duck kibble, other wild animals will like to eat it too. So you end up attracting more than the thing that you want. It might be feral cats, it might be rats, it might be raccoons. Where do we want to draw the line? So I just went with all wild animals. They're supposed to eat what's in nature.
That looks good.
Yes.
Tamara, if we're going to put a sign up for don't feed the ducks, I'd put it at both sides of the creek by the bridge. The little bridge going by the senior center. That's where people go.
I will.
A lot of seniors take their bread and stuff and feed them. I've seen it.
I do know. I did share in the written staff report that some of the new rules actually come out of interactions that I have with people who bring stuff to our attention. And I've got a lot of, real strong nature lovers who complain about people feeding the ducks because it's not healthy. So this is one of those rules where, there's been a lot of advocates saying, don't feed the ducks. And we do know where it is. And it is, I fed the ducks as a kid. It's one of my big memories. I loved it.
We didn't know back then, though.
Yeah, but the white bread was still just as Twinkie-ish as
Yeah.
Okay, so where did I? Oh, fishing with any city park must comply with California Fish and Wildlife regulations. So who knows? We might have one. We might have a healthy salmon run in our creeks one day. And this rule does apply to Bayfront Park, where we do have active fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Horses are allowed.
Can we go back to 11?
Sure.
So it says no animals are allowed within the play areas. Could we change that to playground areas if that's the intent? Because a grass area in the park could be considered as a play area.
So I love your ask, and it has so much more validity. And I actually was chastising myself as I was putting together the agenda item. I did a lot of research on putting the rules together, including a in detailed review of the City of Chico's rules. And the City of Chico has not only just this sheet of written rules, but they have maps for each and every park that highlight the areas for discerning things. So I know there was a question on lighting. Do we light basketball courts or tennis courts? If we light a play area, then it's available for use at night. So that's different than the rules. And playgrounds are different than play areas. So do we want dogs in the playgrounds? Definitely not in the play structures, nor do we want them on the tennis court or the basketball courts. So what I would really love for us to do, me to do for you, or me to do for council at your direction, is add maps to the rules that show the areas where certain rules are or aren't applicable.
Yeah.
Sure. I was at Fernandez today with my 2 dogs, but I only walked the pathway through to the trail going down to the waterfront. That's a playground area on either side of you, but I'm assuming you're still going to be allowed to go on the pathway.
That's
right.
Where I go.
Yeah.
Right. The maps that the City of Chico has are really detailed, especially as it relates to dogs, because the City of Chico has a lot of dog activity, and they allow dogs off leash on certain sides of the road at certain times of the day. So they're really detailed, and it's really set a really good example. And I thought, ooh, we should really be doing that. And as Hector brings up this question about discerning where animals are allowed and aren't allowed, it's a great ask, and I really like it. And I think we can do better by adding maps.
I definitely think that maps would be beneficial, and it might also be useful if you can get simplified enough maps to have them on the signs with the rules, just so it's clearer to people looking at the rules when they're entering the park, just where is okay and where isn't.
Or where they're entering an area that has a special designation.
Right.
Right. Like if the basketball courts don't allow dogs, there should be a sign near the basketball courts that say, no dogs allowed on basketball. I haven't seen a dog play basketball, although that might be cute.
It would be.
So that was 11, and I did edit it, and I think we need to do even more than that. So horses are allowed only in designated trails. This is our existing rule. I've never seen a map of designated trails. I'm still looking for it. I do know that there's a designated horse easement above Ponderosa in the open space. So I thought, okay, I don't want to stop anything that already pre-exists, but I don't want the horses to poop. And if they do poop, I want somebody to take the poop home with them. So I'm not sure if I worded that correctly. Animal waste must be removed or captured for future proper disposal and must remove animal waste. I didn't do a very good job rewording it.
It's like a double negative, right?
Yeah, so they do have those little bags. I think it's probably just right here, and I double asked. Animal waste must be removed or captured for future disposal.
I wonder if they have big enough bags for horses.
They do. They have little diaper bags. Animal waste must be removed or captured for proper disposal. I think in the city of Chico, you can't ride your horse unless it's equipped with a bag.
I guess one potential point of concern is that removed or captured could be read as if I capture it, I don't have to remove it, even though that makes no sense. And
Can you just use the same thing you say for the dog one?
Yes, owners must remove any animal waste or something, or people. Yeah, that's pretty clear with the dogs, yeah.
People must immediately remove any animal waste deposited by animals under their care for proper disposal.
Yeah, that looks like it'd work.
Very good.
So you get to hear about my quirkiness right now. So this one starts with horses are allowed, and the other one starts with dogs using. Sometimes I wonder if it's like people with dogs or people on horses, because the horse isn't going to know how to read the rule. Anyway, that's just my that's my quirkiness.
Maybe you need to have riders or something. I'm not sure.
I think they'll understand the way you have it.
Actually, no, I think it's a good point, because I was thinking, well, if you're riding a horse, you could be like, well, somebody has to remove it, but not necessarily me, right? So,
yeah.
It's kind of true.
I think that's what the under their care clause is for.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, I think people get it, so.
I think so too.
That's just my little sense of humor right there.
I love it.
Who makes the decision?
The people.
Number 15, no fires are allowed within any city park.
Perfect.
Also, fireworks, make sure that might be worth, because common sense is don't light it off, but just to make sure, because people do it over the 4th. You might want to add that too.
I think that's an entirely different rule.
Oh.
So
that's even scarier.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, would we consider a barbecue pit a fire? Especially when it flames up, if you put a stake there?
Hope not.
Well, it depends. Yeah, I don't know. That's another quirky sense of humor. I did go to rule number 17 and said city barbecue pits may be used for charcoal burning only. Barbecue coals must be fully extinguished before leaving the area. In this area, we could say all barbecues must be under control at all times. You can't let your steak start a fire, Hector.
But don't do it.
They do it at fancy restaurants.
And you have to pay extra for it.
And fancy restaurants have fire extinguishers if it gets out of hand.
I'm hoping that all those rules together clearly convey that you have to have controlled fires in the barbecue pits.
Yeah.
And that
makes total sense to me.
Yeah. So I even went so far as to add no outside or personal barbecues are allowed, because once they become portable, they're easy to kick over, easy for that steak of Hector's to get loose.
Easy for someone to get burned. Yeah.
Yeah, it just adds a layer of safety that we just don't want to deal with. You have to carry them in and out. So what does somebody do? Just dump the hog holes? I've seen that. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's again one of those public works things. We don't want to clean that stuff up. Number 9, no loitering within the park.
Sorry, Tamara, before we move on, just thinking on the lines of the personal barbecues, we have gotten requests for people to bring they have their grills, and there's no flames, but they have their propane and they'll cook tacos or other things on there. Is that something that will be excluded as well? We get questions about it. I don't think anybody, as far as I know, nobody has used one, but we do get those calls of is this allowed in your park?
Well, that's a great question. Now, going back to if it's a party of 30, the permit process or the reservation process could control that. You could give them special permission to have a propane grill. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, my first gut is trying to tell me to check in with Chief Winecoop at the fire department to see how they feel about propane mobbed in and out for fires before I suggest we add a limitation for it. Propane itself has got some risks.
I would think that by default, rule number 15 would bar all fires except for the exception carved out by rule number 17.
Right, so it prohibits the use of a propane stove.
If you have flames, it's not allowed.
Yeah.
If you have like some sort of induction grill top or something, you can find a way to power it. That's different, but.
Oh, then I got to write no generators allowed. No noisy generators. How often, Maria, do you get the question?
We've gotten it, I mean, a handful of times. We've gotten it at the park. Like some people will ask us, even with our facility rentals, can we put a grill outside? So we do get them. It's not, they're not that often, but, some people, they rent the park and they want to use a barbecue area, but sometimes people want to cook something differently. So
I would recommend we leave the rules as they are and allow the permit process the freedom to allow the grills if fire signs off on it and they have the appropriate safety.
Okay.
I can understand the desire. I mean, we had some pretty nice little barbecues down at the wastewater treatment plant while we did the $50 million renovation, and I'm pretty sure we had some propane stoves keeping some beans warm to go with the tacos that were grilled. So I think it's a good question, and I would love to see us just address it within a permit or a reservation.
Thank you.
19, no loitering in any park. You can only stay if you're having fun.
So, I mean, loitering, so if I'm at a picnic table talking to a friend, that's okay, but just me sitting there, that would be loitering?
This rule was in there in the first place, so I'm guessing police likes it because it allows them some abilities to talk to people who, according to the Webster's Dictionary, are just idle and without purpose.
Okay, so it's probably
like that's
this
the
needs
point
their own
of the
judgment
park,
what this
though.
means.
Idle without purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a park is to be able to sit and contemplate or look at nature, or so. I actually don't like this rule.
They could be meditating.
Yeah, I just think that's silly.
Well, meditating is purposeful, and so is enjoying the park.
That's
Purposeful.
true.
Then you
I think
start
It's in there if people are just hanging out and obviously up to no good, so that the police can check with them.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, essentially that's true, but I mean, in this new climate that we're in, this is kind of equivalent to stop and frisk, right?
Yeah, that's exactly my issue with it. I'm like, if there is illegal behavior going on, then the police, have every right to. But if I'm sitting on a bench, even if I sit there for 3 hours, like, I don't think the police should come bother me.
Let's see. How could
I think what Tamara was saying, it gives the police. I don't think they're going to bother you if you're sitting there. I think it's people who are.
But they might bother somebody else if they don't like the way they look.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Like someone who's homeless or something.
Yeah, we might want to be careful, I guess.
And I think more to the point, if the police see something that concerns them, usually there's going to be some concrete thing that's not just loitering that, is the thing that concerns the police that they can act on. they're not just going to be stopping people because they're like, oh, hey, I don't like the way you look or whatever. It's going to be, oh, hey, you're doing some concrete thing. And historically speaking, there have been disparities in how infractions like loitering have been applied among, different racial groups, even with the best of intent. So I'm hesitant to back that particular rule.
How do we feel about deleting it?
Delete it.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's already gone.
It's been
I
deleted.
wrote someone's praying a rosary right there in the thing. I mean, they're doing something. I mean, they're not, yeah.
I think there are plenty of tools available to handle inappropriate behavior without a rule like that just may make you feel uncomfortable that somebody has a rule like that.
Yeah. I mean, how do you define that? It's,
Yeah. What does loitering look like to you? I may be sitting here, but my brain is processing. I am.
I think it's a dated concept just to say loitering.
I think eliminating it is a good
I agree with Laurel. Just doing a quick Google search, there have been case law with regards to the vagueness of that, and Fifth and Fourth Amendment issues. So I think removing is probably the best thing.
Thank you for doing that research, Hector, because we may get asked about it at council too. Awesome, it's out. So number 19, no interfering with persons lawfully using or maintaining the park. Number 20, no person shall alter any park or park facility in any way. Number 21, no person shall destroy, injure, cut, or take any natural element of any park, including but not limited to flowers, shrubs, seeds, wood, rocks, frogs, ducks, or crayfish.
So I guess
there goes my childhood right there.
A few questions about 20 and 21. So I'm assuming by alter you mean permanent alterations, like don't cut down a tree, don't, break the slides, don't, damage things. But alter seems like a broad concept, like destroy, injure, or cut. It's pretty clear what you're talking about. But alter, somebody, if they were really determined, could probably argue that you're altering a thing just by using it for the period of time that you're using it, even though that's obviously not the intent here. So I'm wondering if there's another word that's more precise for what's intended here. And then for 21, my question is how that interacts with the whole fishing rule.
Well, I didn't list fish because the California Fish and Wildlife decides whether a fish is food or wildlife. A lot of creeks are catch and release, which one might argue injures the fish, although what I understand of fishing rules is the lures you're supposed to use for catch and release are supposed to not injure the fish. So on number 20, the computer is helping me with change, modify, adjust, vary, amend.
I think the concept you're looking for is damage or harm.
Yeah, I was thinking damage, but then that's in the next one,
Well, let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
If you don't already know, there's a crack in the skate park, which has to be repaired with special concrete. And the special concrete has to have a cure time with above 50 degrees of like 72 hours. So we can't fix it until the weather warms up. And because there's a crack, it's dangerous. So Public Works went out and put their brand spanking new water barrier on the park to prevent the kids from using the park. Because it's dangerous, not because we're mean, but because it's dangerous. somebody, I'm just going to go with a broad somebody, no kid, no adult, no person, somebody drilled a hole in our brand new water barrier so they could drain the water out of it and move it and use the park.
Oh.
So I'm mad, but my story doesn't stop there.
That's terrible.
After that, after they drilled a hole in our brand new barrier and drained it and moved it to use the park, they keep moving it back. But the crack is still there. So they went to the hardware store and bought epoxy and filled the crack with epoxy.
Oh.
So now not only do I have to unepoxy the bad epoxy to get the specialized concrete in the crack, I have to buy a new barrier. So this rule comes fresh on the heels of that experience for me as a public works director. So
Right.
I like the rule the way it is. And if I find out who drilled a hole in my brand new water barrier, so help me.
They're in trouble. They're going down.
I think leave it then, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get it.
So,
And they didn't injure or destroy. Allegedly, they repaired it.
They altered.
okay. So I see your point there, but sometimes people can think they're fixing things, but they're actually making it worse.
Yep.
So don't alter it. Don't move my park
Well, as a
benches.
As a compromise, can we add no person shall modify, damage, or alter? I think there's a point about making it clear that some things are damaged. I mean, someone can look at that and say, well, you might have altered it, you also damaged it.
Can I ask a question unrelated?
Yes.
I have another Zoom meeting. Well, it was at 6:15. I moved it to 6:30. Do you think we might be finished up by then? What would your guess be?
I can go faster. Yes, we're going to finish.
Well, I don't want to rush you. I was just going to tell the other group that we may have to cancel.
I think we can finish.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, great.
And I don't like rule number 21 myself because I did make a joke. This is my childhood. We had a creek outside our house, and I used to go take the crayfish home and the frogs home, and we lived happily ever after. But I'm pretty sure the crayfish would have rather stayed in the creek. Swimming in San Pablo Bay is at your own risk. That's a question we have. Maria's probably got that question too. Can I swim? Yes, you can, but it's at your own risk. We don't know what the water quality is like. We don't know if there's sharks. Skateboarding is allowed within the skateboarding park. Skateboarding is prohibited in all other park areas.
Can I ask something, please?
Sure.
Could you add that the tennis courts are for tennis only? Recently, people have their little roller skates and they're roller skating.
Can you play squash or pickleball?
No.
Okay, so it's only
Pickleball requires different lines and everything.
Yeah, I don't play. I used to play tennis or try to, but
Just let's make it for tennis only.
are for tennis only.
I don't know if you wanted to put playing in there. Tennis courts are for playing tennis. Tennis courts.
So you can't practice playing tennis. You have to play tennis.
Well, that's all right. I've taught English too. So it's tennis courts, as in plural.
It's so hard when you're writing rules.
Sure.
Park users must remove all refuse arising out of their use of the park for proper disposal. We do have trash cans, so if proper disposal is the use of the trash can. Amplified sound is prohibitive. That's one of our existing rules. You can get a permit, so if you have a band event or something, there's a permit. No items may be left unattended within the parks. This includes chairs, animal habitat or food, temporary monuments or memorials, campsites, or all other personal property. Any unattended personal property is subject to removal.
That's good.
The use of jump type play equipment is allowed only as part of a park rental agreement.
Can I ask to have that, just that one thing, can you explain that to me a little more clearly? Does that mean, I don't think it means that we are to rent the jumper from the city, but we have to get a permit from the city to use a jumper. I thought that they were off the table.
Maria?
They are allowed to be, yes, they, and I also want to know, there's a good thing that the park, so you have to have a park reservation, and then there is a permit fee to have the jumper, and then it has to be rented from one of the companies that has provided the city with insurance. I also want to note that it's only Fernandez Park. I think Pinole, is it Pinole Valley, the other picnic area, the Grove area, was also allowed as a jumper area at some point, but that area is to me, it seems unsafe to have a jumper in that area. So Fernandez Park would be the only location for a jumper.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, and a brief clarifying question. When you say jump type play equipment, that's not intended to include stuff like jump ropes, right?
No, it's just like the jumper equipment.
People don't know what that is.
A trampoline or an inflatable bounce house?
Yeah, like a bounce house.
Inflatable jump type quick. That's good.
Perfect.
Any picnic or meeting of a group over 30 persons shall be required to have a permit for such activity. Any person using any park facility for profit, such as personal training, boot camp, filming, lessons, shall be required to have a permit for such activity. They would get this permit from Recreation, and this permit would require them to get a business permit in town and would also require them to provide insurance. So this kind of arose out of COVID when people started to do more exercise outside, and the parks are great, but there's a need for requiring a permit on this.
Do you need to put in there somewhere where people can get permits?
Yes, we do. And we'll put that in the area on the website where the rules are posted.
Okay.
So I think we're down to the last.
All right, Tamara, we had also added the additional rule after the picnic areas that they would need a reservation and the permit as well.
Yes, we did. I will grab that. Let me finish number 31, and then I'll go grab it while the commission finishes deciding what advice to give the council regarding these rules. So rental of specific areas of the park is managed by the city. All rental use must follow these rules as well as the rules provided in their rental agreement. And I'm going to try to get to my email without you guys all seeing it. So I can copy the new rule that Maria and I wrote earlier today. Any questions, comments, concerns? I'm most worried about omissions, because when you see it in front of your face, it's easy to look and say, yeah, that looks great. But what rule are we missing?
So for rule number 31, it seems like a number of times it's been brought up that, exemptions to specific rules can be granted as part of the permitting process, but rule number 31 seems to undermine that by saying all rental use must follow these rules, i.e. all of them, as well as the rules provided with their rental agreement. So maybe change that to say all rental use must follow these rules except where permitted to do otherwise. Or perhaps except where their rental agreement states otherwise, something along those lines. Because right now it seems like there's a conflict.
I think you're probably right.
Do you need as well as follow the rules provided with their rental equipment? Oh no, you're right. Follow these rules. Follow the rules for use as well as. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Also for item number 30, Tamara,
Yeah.
you mentioned a permit. I know permit could be all-inclusive, but should we also add a business license? For number 30.
We can do that. I mean, I didn't want to scare people while they're standing at the park reading the rules so that they don't come apply for a permit because it'd be too onerous. Because if my personal trainer is at the park with me and they stand there and read the rules, I just want them to go get a permit and then find out that they have to get a business license and show insurance. I'd rather get them to that spot where they apply for the permit and then learn they have to do all the extra steps. But
keep in mind that they're probably going to ask for a reservation of the park, and we're going to explain it to them at that point. So we might as well, I'm thinking we probably should spell it out so that it's clear, so that they don't say, we didn't see anything in your park rules about that.
A ton of insurance.
I had a thought, but I'll bring it up when we're done here.
I think you need to take out a ton.
think that's, yeah, I don't know. I think I agree with you, Tamara, that it should say the permit, and then because not everybody doing stuff in the park necessarily does need a business license theoretically. So, you know,
I think that's what this rule is trying to change, though. It's saying if you're doing something for profit, then you also need a business license.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a city thing.
I feel they can go the next step and go to the find out. I don't know. That seems a little prohibitive for doing that.
Yeah. And also, like, this is for the park, right? So for the park, you need a permit. And then in the process of getting a permit, you might have to show that you have a business license and insurance, but then that becomes more like, I feel like just saying permit's fine.
I think if we're going to expect people to have a business license to use a park facility for profit, that we should say that rather than sort of doing a bait and switch, like, oh, just come in and get a permit, and they'll think, oh, it's just like getting a permit for, you know, having over 30 people at the park. That'll be simple. And then they get there and they find out, oh, and also you need to have proper insurance, you need to have a business license, you need to do this and that. I could definitely see some people getting upset by sort of the...
So you want to say shall be required to have a permit and business license for such activity?
Yeah, if we're going to require a business license, then we should say as much. And if we aren't, then we shouldn't.
I would argue that
So go ahead, Tamara.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would argue that the business license is actually not required by the park rules. It's required by other sections of the Pinole Municipal Code that requires any business practicing business in the city of Pinole, no matter what it is, to get a business license. So I would want to make sure that we didn't like end up with conflicting information if we ever were to change another area of our code. I mean, the rule for business licenses is somewhere else. This is just a park rule saying if you use the park for business use, you got to get a permit.
That's what I was trying to say.
And that'll be part of the requirement for the permit, which they'll find out. I really think it's enough. Otherwise, you're going to scare people off from doing it.
Yeah, that's what I think. Hey, I have to drop at 6:30. So,
any omissions, Emily, that you're worried about?
No, I can't think of anything. This looks good to me.
We went from like 10 rules to 30. I feel awful. I feel very regulatory.
Actually, my thought was, you know, THC edibles are a thing now. People do use them. I like to have mostly sober people in the park. Do you want to have a rule about that? Not consuming THC edibles while in the park?
There's another rule in the municipal code already that any cannabis is illegal in the city of Pinole, including the CBD lotion that you can buy at Target today.
Okay.
Any cannabis. And it uses the botanical name that includes any cannabis and all derivatives of cannabis. So Yeah, that's an interesting one because I'm glad you brought it up. It's a changing environment too, a changing world as it relates to cannabis, and that area of our code might need to be looked at, but it's independent of park rules.
Well, it's like you adding the vaping. It's just appropriate to have that.
I'm going to have to drop off. Thanks, you guys. Great meeting.
Bye.
I did.
Bye-bye.
Maria, did I add the right rule in the right spot?
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to 31 because I'm thinking, is a rental also going to be required? So if somebody's holding the Zumba in the gazebo, is it going to be they can just use the space for other people, for them to have priority use, or is it available on a first come, first serve for that group if they're hosting a class? Or if they want to do it on the fields at the soccer fields, will they be required to have a reservations with us? Because I'm thinking our enrichment programs, we do offer some outdoor classes where we have instructors come in and, they're under the umbrella of recreation, and we get 70%, 60%, and we get 40%. And if they see this, I wonder if then they're like, well, we're just not going to go under the umbrella. We're just going to do it on our own. So trying to figure out that it's kind of the same expectation across for them. Because then they probably will just come in, a possibility of them coming just to host a class without having to pay the rental fee. So is that something that we have to require as well?
Maria, you also have groups of daycare kids and groups of young children at parks. I see that quite frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have camps from the area that will bring their, their groups over, and they have lunch on the lawn, and then they go back to their facility at the end. I'm just trying to get clarity because we will get. We have received some questions along this, and it's like, is it a permit plus a rental, or is it just the permit will cover everything for them?
Those are all really good questions because I think we would love to continue to encourage daycare kids to come use the park without hindering them at all, without a permit, without conditions. I would think that we would want our scheduled recreation classes to have access to the inside of a building or to the outside in the park without limitation and without extra. So I don't know if we cover that in other ways. In my mind, there are other ways for us to address that don't become a park rule. They may become an exception. So maybe we just need to add one of those sentences with except by permission of or something like that. Daycares are all permitted in Pinole with use permits, and we could just add as a part of their use permit that they're allowed to use the parks, and then that would just be there. You could probably add a sentence to your courses that say outdoor use is allowable.
Yeah, it's not more the groups that come and go. I think it's more if like somebody were to host a boot camp class, like will they be required to have that rental, that reservation? Will we require them to have? Is that part of our rules that they need the permit and the rental as it is with any of the gatherings, or is it they just need a permit to use the space?
So if they have more than 30, they need a reservation and a permit. If they have what?
I said it would apply to those same groups then, the Zumba groups, they'll need those. So got it.
Yeah, okay. And if they wanted to use a priority area, they would have to have their permit and their reservation. But if it was a personal trainer with 3 people and they're just running and the gazebo is empty and available and they want to do leg stretches, then they wouldn't require a permit. They wouldn't require a reservation because the space is available, but then they would have their permit to do training in the park.
Got it. Okay.
I think that's an application learning curve for us.
And that actually brings up a point about rule number 29. Now that you mention it, it says, it's the one that says that for the over 30 person is required to have a permit, but it doesn't say anything about reservations. So do they only need reservations when under rule number 30, they want to use a priority area, or is it more in general?
If you have a group of more than 30 people, no matter where they are in the park, they have to have a permit.
Right, but do they also need a reservation?
No. If they want to use a priority area, they would have to have a reservation and a permit.
Right, like around the barbecue area or something like that for a group. Sure.
Right.
I think that's okay.
Because I think that would influence how we'd read 31. And then I guess my next question is, do we still have a quorum?
Well, we all agreed prior to this, so
Yep, Debbie said it looks good.
yes. I think we're okay with that, Tamara, because everyone was discussing as we went, and you've reached the end of the rules, with the exception of this one we're just talking about. So
the other thing I want to just remind everybody, and I embrace this, is if we want to change it in June or July or August, we can change it again. I mean, sometimes you just have to try something and see how it works. If it doesn't work, change it.
sure.
I mean, I know we haven't done it for years, but if we do it more frequently now as we're going through, just a changing environment, that's great.
And I really like your idea too of, you specific posts at certain place, like don't feed the ducks, at the tennis courts, at wherever else, at the skate park, and also maps at the parks of specific areas. It's really good.
Yep, we'll definitely do that. All right, so it is our hope that you recommend we take these forward to council for adoption.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I had the question about quorum. Are there still enough of us in the meeting that we can make that recommendation still?
I think we can make the recommendation simply because we had a discussion and everyone let us know that they had to leave at a particular time. So, Maria, I don't see any issues with saying that we would like this to go forward.
They can make that recommendation then.
Make the recommendation that we've discussed the rules and approved them, and to send them forward to City Council.
The reason that I'm asking is because I know that at past meetings of other commissions, like the Planning Commission, saying when people had to leave and they dropped below a quorum, that they had to just flat out stop and then resume at a later time. I don't know if this is formal enough that matters or not, but I figured I should bring it up just in case somebody wants to try and make it an issue later.
The Planning Commission.
I think what I could do is I'll follow up with our attorney tomorrow with your question, and if he feels that there was sufficient direction prior to having some of the members leave, since we were pretty much done, and he feels that the recommendation could move forward, I'll let Maria know so she can let you guys know. If he feels that there wasn't sufficient input from all the members, then again, I'll let Maria know and we can bring this item back if we need to.
Great, that's all I want, just making sure we're, on
Sure.
solid legal ground.
Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you so much for having me tonight and letting me go through this and including my little bit of humor about the horses and the dogs.
I like that, Tamara. Thank you.
And listening to my stories about catching crayfish.
Our parks are precious, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And honestly, loiter as much as you want.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tamara. Any other questions from anybody? In that case, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Right. Next meeting is, when is the next meeting? April 21st, maybe, or?
April 28th.
28th, okay.
Yeah.
April 28th. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Right. See you all then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.